known as a rep brand. At GMC, we get that. Everyone loves that kind of precision. This is GMC.
Alright, welcome to the Young Turks. Got a big show ahead for you guys. A little bit later in the hour, we will actually have non-Paris news. Of course, though, today, after the tragic bombings last week, there is a lot of news following up on what's happened, the fallout, and certainly the reaction here at home. But yes, later in this hour, I will talk about Sarah Palin and what God intends apparently for her, according to her, and what does it mean to lose an election. So you'll, I think, enjoy those comments. And then Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley had a Democratic debate. We covered it live here on Saturday night. It turns out the jury's in on who Democratic insiders thought won the debate. That one I don't think you're going to be surprised by, but I'll give you the numbers behind it, and you'll get a sense of what insiders actually believe and want. Okay? And then, of course, a great second hour. Again, some Paris news there, but also lighter fare like Lady Gaga versus Ronda Rousey. What are they fighting about? Who's right? Who's wrong? We settle all matters. So after the attacks in Paris, a lot of people have been calling on President Obama and all the Democrats to call this terrorism what it is. Islamic terrorism. These are Islamic radicals. Now, I have no problem with saying that, and as a lot of you know, I don't think you should then blame all Muslims, and a lot of people will say, well, nobody's doing that. Some people are doing that, but there is a significant camp that's not blaming all Muslims, but they're just saying, hey, just call it what it is. Because if you say Muslim radicals instead of just radicals or terrorists, I don't know. Does that magically fix it? I don't know. But they are Muslim radicals. So did President Obama go in that direction? Well, no. If anything, he went in the opposite direction. Now, I got to call it like it is. So I'm going to give you some quotes from the president, and you'll get a sense of it. He said, the face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace. Wow. Okay. He said, Americans understand we fight not a religion. Ours is not a campaign against the Muslim faith. He went further. He said, this great nation of many religions understands our war is not against Islam or against faith practiced by the Muslim people. There's a point where you pause and go, man, this sounding like he's trying to apologize for Islam and what a great peaceful religion it is after we just got hit by Muslim radicals. Don't be a Muslim apologist at a moment like this, right? Well, it takes it further. Islam is a vibrant faith. More compliments towards Islam. Millions of our fellow citizens are Muslim. We respect the faith. We honor its traditions. Our enemy does not. Our enemy doesn't follow the great traditions of Islam. They've hijacked a great religion. Wow. If you're worried that President Obama is being a little bit of an apologist for Islam, I can see that those quotes are damaging. And this just in, we just discovered this actually. Turns out, not after these attacks, but just 6 days after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, Obama went to the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C., and gave a speech cautioning against bigotry and religious discrimination against Muslims. After 9/11, it's not time to worry about Muslims. It's time to worry about attacking them, right? The people who attacked us. He went to an Islamic Center 6 days after 9/11. What are you doing there? Why are you going to an Islamic Center? You should be going to our center, right? Oh, I'm sorry, none of this was President Obama. It was all President George W. Bush. So every one of those quotes. The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. Islam is a religion of peace. George W. Bush. Americans understand our fight is not against the Muslim faith. George W. Bush. The great nation of many religions understand our war is not against Islam or faith practiced by Muslim people. George W. Bush. We respect the faith. We honor its traditions. Our enemy does not. They've hijacked the great traditions of Islam. George W. Bush, the person who went to the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C. 6 days after 9/11, was not Barack Obama. It was George W. Bush. So all the Republicans out there telling us, he was right and he had this thing figured out. Republicans have always been right. You blame the Muslims. The Muslim radicals, Muslim terrorists, Muslim radicals, right? That's why won't Obama say it? Why won't Obama say it? How about Bush? I didn't hear you complaining back then. No, Bush was strong and tough and knew who the real fight was against, right? Interesting double standard. But maybe we're playing with the quotes, right? Well, okay, listen to the man himself. Here he is on tape.
The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace. These terrorists don't represent peace. They represent evil and war.
Islam is peace. Now, look, I'm not blaming George Bush for those quotes. Elliot Abrams, one of the top neocons in his administration, said, hey, we're about to go to war in 2 Muslim countries, and we need allies in those countries. It wasn't time to basically spit in their eye, to paraphrase, right? It wasn't a direct quote in terms of spitting in their eye. But he said, we need those Muslim allies to fight with us. We didn't want to insult them, which makes a lot of sense. And Juan Carlos Zarate, a counterterrorism advisor, also had said, you do not want to offend your allies. You certainly do not want to describe the threat in terms of a war on Islam. You know why? Because that'll get a lot of our troops killed. It'll make people want to fight with us, even if they weren't against us in the first place. If they say, hey, if you're fighting ISIS, great, I'm fighting ISIS in this particular case. Back then, after 9/11, hey, you're fighting Al-Qaeda, Iran was fighting against Al-Qaeda. Lots of the people of Afghanistan were fighting against the Taliban. They're like, great, then I want to fight against the Taliban with you. I want to fight against Al-Qaeda with you. If you're fighting against Islam, wait a minute, then I'm against you and I'll join their side. That's a terrible idea. That's why Bush didn't say it's all Muslims. He needed those Muslim allies, and it wasn't true. It wasn't all Muslims. A lot of Muslims fight with us. In fact, if you're going against Muslims today, where would you go? You'd say, okay, let's go bomb the Muslims, okay? Muslims in general, it's the ideology of Islam that has led to this, right? So, let's go bomb Muslims. Oh, you'd have hit the Kurds who are fighting against ISIS. You'd hit some of the anti-Assad forces, anti-ISIS forces in Syria. Would you hit Turkey, a top NATO ally? I mean, they are Muslim. Oh, right? I mean, it's the ideology of Islam. We have to call it what it is, and we have to declare war on it, right? Okay, go fight the ideology of Islam in Indonesia. What the hell are you doing over there? See, that's why Bush knew it was a bad idea. Obama knows it's a bad idea, because as president, you have to make sure that we have a lot of allies, that our troops don't get unnecessarily killed by antagonizing more people, and that we hit the right targets. Even Bush, who couldn't hit the right target if his life depended on it, said, hey, wait, this is a monumentally bad idea, trying to fight a war against the whole ideology of Islam. So, I'm not saying Bush was wrong in those clips. What I'm saying is, don't be a hypocrite. Be consistent. If you didn't like what Bush said there, he was way more of a quote-unquote apologist, as people would say, than Obama's ever been. Okay? Obama did not go to Islamic Center 6 days after 9/11, and he's not the one that said over and over, Islam is peace. That was your boy, George W. Bush. By the way, sometimes I point to the audience, like I'm talking to Republicans. I know most of you are. It's not your boy. Trust me, I know. Okay. All right, now let's go to contemporary Republicans. Oh boy, who's going to step in after Paris to demagogue away on this issue? Of course, Donald Trump. So first he's going to go after Moss here in the U.S. Let's watch.
Donald Trump, the French are talking about that. Is that something that you would consider doing as president?
Well, I would hate to do it, but it's something that you're going to have to strongly consider, because some of the ideas and some of the hatred, the absolute hatred, is coming from these areas.
I would hate to do it. Yeah, it sure sounds like, oh, hate to do it, but golly gee, what are we going to do? Okay, understand something. If you got some sort of imam preaching physical violence against the United States, oh, by all means, wiretap his ass. Don't get him right away. Get a warrant, do an investigation. God knows where it leads you. Maybe it leads you to other guys who are interested in doing physical violence against the United States. We're all in favor of that. There's nobody against that. Okay. But if you're saying, hey, let's go to house of worship and listen in just in case, my guess is if you did that at a church or at a temple, people would be a little upset. Can you imagine if we were wiretapping all the churches in the country? No, I know, but it's Moss. It's different. They're dangerous folks. All right, go ahead.
So it's something that many people, not me, it's something that many people are considering and many people are going to do.
I love the way this guy talks. I'm not considering it. I'm the only one saying it on TV, but no, many other people are thinking of doing it. In other words, for all the people who want to do it, give me credit because I'm the one talking about it. But I don't want to be held responsible for it because that's kind of it's demagoguery, right? Let's unite against the Muslims and investigate all their mosques. So I didn't say it. I didn't say it. Many people are talking about it. Oldest fox in the string of the book. Although, by the way, all this is, of course, happening on MSNBC, Progressive Channel. All right, one more for Fred.
Is there something that you would do here in the homeland that you think is not being done now to protect United States citizens?
Well, you're going to have to watch and study the mosques because a lot of talk is going on at the mosques. And from what I heard in the old days, meaning a while ago, we had great surveillance going on in and around mosques in New York City. And I understand our mayor totally cut that out. He totally cut it out.
Yeah. He cut it out. You know why? And not because it was wildly unconstitutional and illegal. That might have been a part of it. But because it led to, after millions upon millions of dollars spent, after civil liberties trounced upon, 0 arrests, and get this, 0 leads. They listened and listened to the mosque, and what they kept hearing was prayers. They didn't get a single lead out of it. Meanwhile, the terrorist strike happened. Why are we constantly listening to the wrong things? You know that the guy who's now being accused of, and I hate this word, mastermind in regard to terrorists, they're not that smart, right? So the guy who put together the Paris attacks, they believe is from Belgium. He's a Muslim from Belgium. He was in an Al-Qaeda magazine, or an ISIS magazine, I'm sorry. First of all, it's amazing that they have magazines. But more important than that, how could we not trace that? How are we wiretapping Americans? Mosques, universities, let alone non-Muslims that we wiretap all the time. We're wiretapping almost the whole country in a sense. We've got everybody's metadata. We've discovered all of this. The guy with his name was in an ISIS magazine and said, oh, yeah, I'm plotting attacks in Europe. I go around Europe with weaponry all the time, and I'm going to go get them. He's sitting in Europe. Why don't you investigate that guy? Can we not ask for any logic? I want to direct the resources to where they are going to be most beneficial. When a guy says, I'm going to do a terrorist attack in an ISIS magazine, let's subscribe, let's grab that, read through it, and look up all the names. It's not even that hard. Instead, they're like, no. The guys who are going to do the terrorist attacks, leave them alone. Let's just listen into Moss, see what happens. If I thought it was going to be fruitful, we'd have a conversation around which guys to get a warrant about, okay? But it hasn't been fruitful. Stop wasting our money. Go get the terrorists. Jesus, man, do some real surveillance. Okay. Now, speaking of the terrorists, we have some of them on tape, so let's go to that story. So, now after the attacks in Paris, some in ISIS are emboldened, so they've put together a little videotape that they're going to tell us who's next and who they're coming after. Watch.
للدول التي تشارك في الحملة الصليبية والله لك يوما بإذن الله كيوم فرنسا فوالله إن كنا قد دكينا فرنسا في عقر دارها في باريس فقسما بأمر الله لندكن أمريكا وبعقرها في واشنطن بإذن الله تعالى. وأقول لدول أوروبا إننا قادمون بالمفخخات والتفجيرات، قادمون بالأحزمة والكواتم، قادمون ولن تستطيعوا ردنا لأننا اليوم بتنا أقوى من ذي قبل بكثير.
It drives me crazy that they've got Twitter accounts, they've got magazines, they've got websites. They posted that video on their website. Track the website. They're doing it right in front of our face. They're right there, man. So I know they're not doing that in Michigan or Marseille, and so it's harder to get them. I'm aware of that. But all the warrantless wiretapping you're doing of innocent Americans, they put that on their website. Can't you trace it back? Is that too much to ask for? Anyway, so they say that they're going to come and hit Washington. Should we ignore that? Of course not. Of course we should take precautions. We're not George W. Bush, who, given a memo saying bin Laden determined to attack inside the United States, said, you covered your ass, go home, to the person who presented that memo to him. No, don't be complacent. Take every precaution you need to take. Be proactive in, yes, ferreting out criminals and terrorists and figuring out who they might be and how they might strike. But should we be terrorized by them? Well, that's what they want us to do, right? So if you're thinking, then I'm not going to go to Washington, I'm not going to go to Paris, don't do that. Then they win. Then you let them terrorize you. Look, you can say, hey, it's easy for you to say, but I go to Washington all the time. I'll go to Washington. I mean, I almost want to fly to Paris right now to tell them that we're not cowed by them, right? This is not a time to bend our head. So there's two ways that you fight back. You don't let them terrorize you. So whether you talk about Washington or later in that video about the European countries, no, we're not going to operate on your terms. And secondly, don't let them change us. That's what we did wrong after 9/11. Said, oh my God, okay, some right-wingers like Joe Scarborough say absurd things like, they hate us because they hate us. I'm going to need you to be a little smarter and dive in so we can figure out what the real problem is. Okay, but let's take your simplistic view at it. They hate us because they hate us. They hate us for what? Who are we? They hate us for our freedoms. That's what George Bush used to say all the time, right? And the right-wing pundits say. What are our freedoms? Well, we have due process. We have all the freedoms laid out in the Constitution. And what did they do? They took some of that away from us. They took away due process. They took away right to privacy. Said, no, we are going to search your phone records, your internet searches. We're going to look at all that without getting a warrant. We're going to cast a wide net. We're going to take away some of those liberties. Well, then you're responding to the terrorists and giving them what they want. No, this is a moment when you have to be strong and say, no, we stand for freedom. We stand for liberty. And we're not going to take that away. And you're not going to restrict our liberty. We're going to go to Washington. We're going to go to Paris. And we're going to keep doing things our way. And our way means we respect our citizens and we respect their rights. Whatever you do, don't be so scared of the terrorists that you change who we are. That's what they want most of all. Don't give them that pleasure. Hell no. We're Americans. We're French. And we stand by our principles. All right, one more story. Now, I'm often frustrated that our intelligence agencies can't seem to find ISIS, even though they're all over social media, Twitter accounts, they've got websites where they post threatening videos telling us they're going to attack Washington and other European cities. You've got a magazine, ISIS has a magazine. I'm blown away with it. So, the one group that says, yeah, we're going to fight back is anonymous. So, today they put out a video saying, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but we're coming for ISIS. That's one.
La guerre est déclenchée. Préparez-vous. Ces attentats ne peuvent pas rester impunis. C'est pourquoi les Anonymous du monde entier vont vous traquer. Attendez-vous à de très nombreuses cyberattaques. Anonymous présente encore ses condoléances aux familles des victimes. Nous n'oublions pas, attendez-vous à nous.
Okay, love it. Anonymous said Sunday that more than 2,000 ISIS-related Twitter accounts had been taken down in Operation Paris. #OpParis. Okay, so they've already struck. Now, Western intelligence officials sometimes get mad at Anonymous. They hate Anonymous anyway. He threatens what they view to be the establishment. Here, Anonymous is fighting for our freedoms and against the terrorists. Doesn't matter, they hate them anyway, right? They hate them because they hate them, right? And they say, oh, no, we were about to track those Twitter accounts down, and, you're hurting our intelligence operations. Really? It didn't look like you were about to track down anything related to ISIS. Look at what just happened in Paris. So you'll excuse me if I don't believe in your great intelligence operations across the West. Apparently, they're sitting in Belgium, and they're sitting in Paris, and they've got sleeper cells, and they're planning these attacks, and like the main guy who planned the attacks from Belgium was in an ISIS magazine. His name was in there, and he was saying, yeah, I'm going throughout Europe with weapons. Where's our intelligence? Where's our intelligence? No, we got hit again. They said we should do bombs. We do the bombs. We got hit anyway, right? So none of this stuff has worked. So you'll excuse me if I'm not awed by our intelligence work. I know you're great at, going after American citizens and violating their rights. But I'd love to see that in action when it actually matters and you catch a terrorist. Now, don't get me wrong. From time to time they do. They claim that they thwarted some attacks in Belgium before what happened in Paris. From time to time, American officials and British officials will say we thwarted attacks, and from time to time that'll actually be right. Okay? So it's not like they've never done anything right, but yet today it's hard not to be frustrated by their lack of intelligence as we had the carnage in Paris, 129 dead, hundreds upon hundreds injured. So am I glad that somebody's fighting back against them with whatever resource they have? Yes, I am glad. Now, Anonymous had started this fight a little earlier too, and they've had already some results from it. Last August, the group declared full-scale cyber war against the Islamic State, saying it would combat the terrorist network's influence on social media. Since then, Anonymous has reportedly identified and taken down tens of thousands of pro-ISIS Twitter accounts. Some donation pages for the terror group listed on the dark web have also been shuttered by the collective, an Anonymous member told The Atlantic earlier this year. I mean, at least they're stopping some donations to ISIS. At least they're stopping them from getting their message out in some ways. So the fact that the battle has been joined by the forces of light on the internet, I think is a positive development, and good to see some people can do intelligence work online. Young Turks. Let me read some tweets. You guys made some great points in here, and then we'll do the rest of the show. First, Hopkirk says, the most annoying thing about an ISIS video was the cutaway. It was a 2-camera shoot. It's true, man. It's frustrating. They're this advanced, and they're using this much technology, and we can't trace it. And by the way, don't get me wrong. The Western government sometimes, especially the American government, will say, "Oh, we trace some of their technology, and every once in a while we'll bomb somebody with a cell phone." See, that's why, look, I know my opinion on this is controversial from both fronts. Some progressives are mad at me. Conservatives are always mad at me. But I would, and I know none of this is easy. If it was easy, we'd do it on day one. I get that. But we got to do hard work to make sure that terrorism doesn't happen again. I would trace what the ISIS social media accounts, and then I would send in special forces to wherever they were. Like when they were making that fucking video. Boy, that would have been a great time for special forces, wouldn't it? Anyway, And let me just say, everybody does this. Even my favorite people do it. Let alone heinous people like ISIS, and Michelle Bachmann does it too. Anyway, don't do the thing where you're looking at the camera and talking, and then you take a second shot like this, and now you're talking like this. And let me tell you something else, watching. We're coming for you. It always looks awkward. Okay? All right. Random point. More tweets. Hashtag TYT Lives, how you talk to us. Fan of Stuffs writes in, I didn't know that about Bush, all those quotes about Islam and how we shouldn't be attacking Muslims. He says, this makes him a slightly less awful person in my mind. Slightly. Ironic that we've given Bush some help here then. El Duande Chingon says, another bait and switch, where I switched out the Bush quotes for Obama. He said, we've been Shyamalan again. That's funny. John Connor says, shut down churches because Dylan Root. John, what are you doing? You're not allowed to say Dylan Root. If you do, you're an apologist and a terrible person and false equivalency. Shush! Shush! Don't ever mention that! No. The churches he went to, they don't count. That's a lone wolf. Lone wolf, united ideology. You get it right, John. Okay, and your mama, always funny, says, remember Fox News will say, now isn't the time for politics while these bodies aren't even cold yet. That's interesting. After the mass shootings in America, it's not time for politics. After the terrorist attacks, it's immediately time for politics. Shut down the borders, war against the refugees, go after the mosques. Their bodies aren't even cold yet. What are you guys doing? Oh, when it suits your purposes, you love to play politics with tragedy. Okay, great point. Okay, now, let me go on to some of the remaining items in today's news. Speaking of which, okay? So here in the United States, our reaction to Paris has been, in some ways, unfortunate. The attacks were horrific, and we should take action to find the people who did it, bring them to justice. Some are already, of course, caught and killed. Some blew themselves up. But there's an international manhunt for some of the others in Europe. So our reaction here in the U.S. by some of the governors is, okay, panic. We're closing our own internal borders within the states. But not to ISIS. Against Syrian refugees. Okay, so here are the number of states who have already done that immediately. Right after the attacks in Paris. Alabama, Michigan, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Massachusetts. They now have a Republican governor. Congratulations. Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. All saying, we will not be taking Syrian refugees. First, let's quickly point out that the Syrian refugees are running from ISIS. Those are the guys we're running away from. Well, ISIS could sneak some people in. Apparently, ISIS could get a whole bunch of people who were born and raised in France, which is the majority of the attackers in the Paris attacks, to do their bidding for them anyway. So, they can also do it with people that are already in the country. They don't need to sneak refugees in. The overwhelming majority of them are, by the way, some of them are Christians and Muslims, because I know, Muslims, no sympathy. You're probably bad guys. Ooh, Christian refugees. I didn't think about that. But we should let those guys in. In fact, that's what Ted Cruz said. Ted Cruz said, Muslims obviously were going to plot, but if there are any good Christian refugees, those guys we should let in. Great, a religious test. Wonderful. Got the American ideal right there, Ted. There was a governor that stood against the time, though, Tom Wolf from Pennsylvania. He said, we must not lose sight of the fact that families leaving Syria are trying to escape the same violence and unimaginable terror that took place in Paris and Beirut. That is exactly right. Governor Wolf with some real courage here in America. Now, another guy who backed that claim up was President Obama, also partly referring to Cruz, saying we should let in the Christians but deny the Muslim refugees running away from ISIS. By the way, speaking of which, the last 3 out of 4 major attacks across the world that ISIS has done has been at mosques. There's 43 people killed in Beirut, mosque attack in Iraq, mosque attack in Saudi Arabia. In fact, according to a counterterrorism report here in the U.S., back in 2011, latest numbers we had, 82 to 97% of the victims of Al-Qaeda back then, and similar numbers, I imagine, for ISIS today, is fellow Muslims. So they kill Muslims more than anything else. That's why the Muslims are running away from them. See, there's a war there, and where ISIS is killing other Muslims. I say 82 to 97 based on those 2011 numbers. But the reality is today, the numbers are almost certainly much, much higher. There's some Yazidi in there, there's some Christians in there, but overwhelmingly they hit Muslims. That's why the Muslims are trying to come to a place of hope called America. That's what President Obama emphasizes as well.
When I hear political leaders suggesting that there would be a religious test for which person who's fleeing from a war-torn country is admitted, when some of those folks themselves come from families who benefited from protection when they were fleeing political persecution, that's shameful. That's not American. It's not who we are. We don't have religious tests to our compassion.
Now, if you're a true Christian, what do you think about that? I'll get to that in a second. But first, let me quote a woman that came here to America from France, the Statue of Liberty. It says on her plaque, "Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles." The name of the Statue of Liberty, Mother of Exiles, as now all these shameless governors across the country tell us that we should reject the exiles. We should listen to the French and what they originally said when they sent the Statue of Liberty over. By the way, these are the same Republicans who told us we should change the name of French fries to freedom fries, and that the French didn't know what they were doing, and when they told us not to go into the Iraq War. It turns out the French did know what they were doing. If we had listened to them in the first place, there probably would be no ISIS today if we didn't unnecessarily start that war in Iraq. But at the time, right-wing talk shows were pouring French wine into the gutters, and they were calling John Kerry French. Tom DeLay, Republican leader at the time, would start every speech with, as John Kerry would say, "Bonjour." Ha ha ha. They love to make fun of the French. Today they turn around and say, "Oh yes, we are with our oldest ally, France." No, you're not. You've made fun of the French your whole life. You've been derisive towards them when they try to help us as a friend to get us out of that mess that we were getting ourselves into with Iraq. You slapped them across the face. So save me your crocodile tears about how much you love France, okay? That's not remotely true. One more quote from the Statue of Liberty in case you're confused. "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." That's what America stands for. If you're a true Christian, then I would point you towards Psalm 82:3-4. "Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked." So, if you think ISIS is the wicked, then I think this is the time to rescue people from the wicked. Whether you're a true Christian or a true American is up to you. Okay, what is it, Psalm? Psalm, okay. Well, as you can tell, I don't believe it. Okay. Alright, let's go on to non-terrorist stuff. Over the weekend, we had a Democratic debate, and I had a slightly different vision of it, and we did here, we did our live coverage, than apparently Democratic insiders. I'll tell you in a minute what they thought of it. But first, let's go to some video that is uncomfortable for Hillary Clinton when confronted on, hey, wait a minute, you're taking a tremendous amount of money from Wall Street bankers, and it seems like with your policies, you're protecting them. This is the answer that she gave.
I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
That was hideous. and it's not just me saying it, even the mainstream pundits in the established media are like, why did you bring up 9/11 in the context of protecting the bankers? Banking crash happened in 2008, 7 years after 9/11. You're telling me that you're protecting the banks from the terrorists? That's the worst line I have ever seen in a Democratic debate. Let's see if insiders agreed in a minute. Now, I thought Bernie Sanders had some good lines, like this one.
I have never heard a candidate, never, who has received huge amounts of money from oil, from coal, from Wall Street, from the military-industrial complex. Not one candidate said, oh, these campaign contributions will not influence me. I'm going to be independent. But why do they make millions of dollars of campaign contributions? They expect to get something. Everybody knows that.
Look, I've been waiting for a politician to make this point for as long as I can remember. Why do you think they're giving you the money? For their health? No, they're business people. They're expecting a return on investment. And with the Clintons, they've gotten decades of return on investment. And by the way, it's not just campaign donations. I'll give you that list in a second. Listen to this. Clinton made $3.15 million in 2013 alone from speaking to firms like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, and UBS, according to the list her campaign released for a speaking piece. It's over $3 million just from banks, just in year 2013, and that is directly going into her pocket. That's how the Clintons became multimillionaires. That's not campaign donations. She just gets to keep that. No, they're not trying to bribe her in case she becomes president to influence her decisions. No. They just can't wait to see what she's going to say in that hour. Oh, wow. Hillary. Oh, what a good speech. Yeah, here's $3 million. Well, pearls of wisdom. That's what they are. Now, when it comes to the campaigns, as you look at this list, Bernie Sanders has donations from unions across the board. Now, that represents a lot of workers in the country. Now, you can disagree with some of those unions, but there are real workers represented, millions upon millions. When you go over to Hillary's side, oh, look at that. The first four are giant financial companies. Top four donors, 5 out of 6, all giant banks. And Hillary Clinton doesn't want to reinstitute Glass-Steagall, which would prevent the banks from gambling with your depositor money. Wow, protecting the banks. Hey, Hillary, are you still protecting them from 9/11? Is that what you're still doing? Or is it that those campaign donations and the $3 million you got in 2013 alone, let alone the millions upon millions you and Bill Clinton have gotten through all these years from just the banks? I wonder if that has a small part in you protecting the banks. Nonetheless, the insiders looked at this debate, and according to Politico, that talks to insiders in some of the early primary states and in Washington, 77% of Democratic insiders surveyed called Clinton the winner of that debate. Well, if you're an insider and you love this system of crony capitalism, legalized bribery, you would think Hillary's the winner. You're like, it's just going to continue the system. We're all going to continue to get rich. Of course Hillary's the winner. If you're the rest of us, you might not have seen it that way. But I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders' debate was flawless. We picked it apart live when we covered it on TYTnetwork.com, as we do with every debate. And we said, look, he shouldn't have pivoted in his first answer when they were talking about Paris. He should have stayed on national security throughout. I know that. I get that. I said it the minute he said it while we were doing the play-by-play coverage. You should have had that full answer about Paris and terrorism and foreign policy. He pivoted towards domestic policy, and I didn't think that was a good idea. But when you look at the substance, first of all, he made the best point on foreign policy. He said, why aren't our Muslim allies in the region helping us fight that war? Why do we have to carry almost all the cost and responsibility of that war? ISIS is attacking Turkey. They're attacking Saudi Arabia. So Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, which does its fair part, to be fair to Jordan in particular, and Hillary Clinton pointed that out, should carry a bigger burden, right? Now, look, the people who are fighting ISIS on the ground, I'm not trying to disdain them. The Kurds are doing brave fighting against ISIS, and some of the other fighters in the area as well. But there, Bernie Sanders made a good point on foreign policy, which then Clinton and O'Malley went, oh, yeah, I guess they should help us. I mean, we're going to foot the whole bill, but okay, yeah, sure, they should help us. It's again, Sanders was not flawless in the debate. He had some issues there. If you're concerned about your foreign policy, You should have given them more foreign policy. I get all that. But to say that Hillary Clinton clearly won that debate when she was exposed as the person who's working on behalf of the donors is crazy talk. It's crazy to us. It's not crazy to the insiders who think, I don't want Bernie to win. I want Hillary to win. In fact, one last one here from Politico. Nearly half of the Democrats surveyed, again, these are specifically, according to Politico, insiders in the Democratic Party, said the Vermont senator lost the debate, and only 10% of Democrats said he won the debate. Because when he exposes their corruption, they don't view that as a problem. They view that as an asset. They're like, how else would we get paid? Bernie lost that debate. Hillary nailed it. Okay. Now, one last story from from Sarah Palin. Let's go to that. Okay. Sarah Palin's going to sit down with CBS correspondent Tracy Smith, and she's going to ask about Bristol Palin. I remember Bristol Palin, of course, Sarah Palin's daughter. She's the one who was getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to preach abstinence, and then, oops, she had a child out of wedlock. I guess that abstinence speech just didn't work on herself. And then, oops, again, what was that Britney Spears song? Oops, I did it again. She got pregnant again out of wedlock. So, now wait a minute, this seems like a little hypocritical, doesn't it? Well, good for Tracy Smith. She asked that question. Let's see the answer.
Bristol's pregnant again. That can't be how you saw this playing out. Getting married and pregnant again.
Heck no, because being a single mom is, oh my goodness, my heart goes out to the single parents. You know, I can't wait for about 45 more days, and I'm going to have a little baby granddaughter, and I'm happy about it.
You're looking at it like a blessing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Of course there are those who say, come on, this goes against everything you stand for.
Well, the cool thing about putting your faith in God is He certainly is a God of second chances and third and fourth and fifth chances. I screw up all the time.
Oh, if you do it, you're a welfare queen. And where are the fathers? Here's some bootstraps. If I do it, a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, a fifth chance. Really, God's a God of fifth chances? Is that what you do and what you preach and what you practice when it comes to the poor people in this country, the middle class in this country, the average person in this country? No, you judge, right? Oh, this is what's wrong, and it's a family culture is breaking down. When it's you, oh, I view it as a blessing, really. All right, now one more from Tracy Smith, because I enjoyed the way that Sarah Palin framed this. Hey, remember you guys kind of lost in 2008? Sarah Palin had a documentary made about her from Friendly People. What was it, Invincible or something like that? Undefeated? Pretty sure they were defeated in 2008. Let's see how she answers it.
After the loss in 2008, did you come back here to kind of nurse your wounds?
Came back here, man, because got to get back to real life, you know?
Did you feel like a loser?
Well, sure. I mean, you either win or you lose. And it's like, dang, I wish I could have added more.
Do you feel like you're to blame for the loss in 2008? Because people do blame you.
Well, it takes a team to win, so it takes a team to lose. I was part of the team that came in second out of two. So, yes. Yeah, I mean, it's semantics. Okay, words matter. You either win or you lose. We lost. That makes you not a winner at that time.
I know. We came in second place out of two. I'll let that speak for itself. Down goes.
Anybody who wants to speak gets to.
Commonly described as one of the greatest novels of the 20th century, Lord of the Flies is also one of the most brutal depictions of human character ever written.
We would have given you fire if you asked for it, but you didn't. Then sneaking up like a thief. Say that again. Thief! Thief! Who's a thief? You are.
A regularly challenged book and ranked number 68 on the American Library Association's list of frequently banned classics. It details the barbaric demise of a once civilized group of boys. A tale that takes all of the worst aspects of human nature and watches them war with one another. It's an uncomfortably unput-downable read. Number 9, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain.
Say, what are you doing here?
You wouldn't tell me if I was to tell you. I run off.
Jim.
I had to, Huck. I had to.
You can't do that. You belong to the widow.
The oldest book to feature today, and regularly listed as one of the great American novels. Huckleberry Finn has forever been subject to sanctions.
That sure will be heaven to me. And I've got only one person to thank, and that's you, Huck.
You know why I'm doing it, don't you?
I don't know why you're doing it, but still in all you're doing it. I don't figure that even an abolitionist could do a better job than you're doing, Huck.
Don't you call me that. You ain't no free state yet.
The direct sequel to Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, it comes most under fire for its language, and specifically for frequent racial slurs.
Oh, don't worry. You're going to go free. I'll tell that abolitionist where he can find you. I will turn you in. I don't see how anybody would want a thing like you.
Depicting a Southern antebellum society, the likes of which no longer existed at the time of publishing, its vocabulary was a little outdated, even in the late 1800s.
Folks were low-down, dirty sort of folk.
Nowadays, some Huck Finn terms are considered hugely offensive and subsequently censorable.
Suppose it is true that the Negro is inferior to the white in the gifts of God.
Psalm 82.
Is it not the exact reverse of justice that the white should take from the Negro any part of the little which he has?
Number 8, 1984, George Orwell. An author banned on more than one occasion, George Orwell struggled to get Animal Farm published because of its thinly veiled criticism of the USSR.
Comrades, I have made a terrible discovery. There are traitors among us.
But we've selected 1984 as Orwell's best banned book, if only for the irony.
It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words.
Sugar, 2.4%.
You won't have seen the dictionary 10th edition yet, Smith?
7.5%.
It's that thick.
8%.
The 11th edition will be that thick.
The novel's almost hero, Winston Smith, lives in a society ravaged by war and revolution, under constant surveillance.
Smith? 6079 Smith W. Yes, you. Bend lower. You're not trying.
As he contends with the ultra-restrictive Big Brother, Smith's plight is appropriately paralleled by various governments, including the Soviet Union themselves, banning the book entirely.
How many fingers, please?
What else can I say? 5, anything you like. Only please stop it. Stop the pain.
Number 7, the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling.
Neither one can live while the other one survives. It means one of us is going to have to kill the other in the end.
It's the best-selling book series in history. It's been translated into 73 languages, but that doesn't mean that Harry Potter is beyond the ban.
Probably full of narcos, though.
More narcos.
I have no idea.
The tales of The Boy Who Lived have also picked up a fair amount of criticism.
Only if you keep us.
Various religious groups have challenged the books, claiming they promote ideas of witchcraft, the occult, and Wicca.
Wow, we're identical. I'll judge you're not. Haven't got anything a bit more sporting, have you? Yeah, I don't really fancy this colour.
According to the ALA, they're the most challenged books of the 21st century.
Treacherous little bleeder. Is there no one we can trust?
Number 6, American Psycho, Bret Easton Ellis.
It's not just about the pleasures of conformity and the importance of friends. It's also a personal statement about the band itself. Hey, Paul!
It's a novel deemed harmful to minors in Germany, only available to buy or rent if you're over 18 in Australia, and generally sold shrink-wrapped in New Zealand. In short, American Psycho caused and causes quite a stir.
I really wasn't that concerned about morality in my fiction. I think
Alright, back on the Young Turks, checking out with you guys. We've got a bunch of stories for you guys. What a bunch of stories for you. They're fantastic.
It sounds like my teases, like when I say, come back, we have more fun stuff after the break.
No, it's fun. It's fantastic. No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah. That's what we have, okay? Alright, I'm going to read some fantastic tweets for you guys. Hashtag TYT Live if you want to talk to us during the show. Fan of Stuffs is on fire today, writing in, imagine if someone suggested there should be a religious test for immigrants during World War II. Ouch. Right? Great point. Would have been quite unfortunate. A little unfortunate right now. Enver N. Jackson, about Illinois being one of the states that's trying to block refugees. Yuck, I'm from Illinois. Who would have thought I'd be more disgusted by the one governor who hasn't been tossed in jail? Illinois has had some issues with their governors winding up in jail. By the way, in case you're wondering, I should have said it during the story. They have no ability to block refugees. That's not legal. The federal government makes decisions on immigration,
right,
not the states. Totally illegal and unconstitutional for them to try to do.
We just need to build walls between all the different states and then have the Mexicans pay for it.
Yeah, because that's right. Or no, in this case, have the Syrian refugees pay.
Right, that's right.
Okay, bring them in to build it and then kick them out. The reason Anna brings that up is because if, let's say, New Jersey lets them in, how is Michigan going to know and stop someone driving in to Michigan that they were originally Syrian refugees? Let alone the Ted Cruz of the world who say it's okay if they're Christian but not okay if they're Muslim. So I guess at the border of Michigan, no matter where you're driving in from, we're going to do checkpoints now to see if another state admitted a Syrian refugee and a Muslim one at that. Okay, so that's the country you want to live in, right? That's the one they're pushing for. Anyway, Jeet Jet makes another good point about that story. Those escaping political persecution like the parents of certain GOP presidential candidates, right? And that's what Obama was partly alluding to, saying, when your parents were escaping political persecution from Cuba, the fact that we gave you refugee status was awesome. When we want to give it to other people escaping political persecution from ISIS, no, fuck them. Yeah. Okay. And finally, Wired Wagon says, this is fun. You know how they renamed French fries to Freedom Fries? I was talking about that at the end of the hour. I order Liberty sandwiches when I go to Mexican restaurants to make it clear where I stand on immigration. I like the idea of calling tacos or burritos Liberty sandwiches. Okay, that's awesome. Nice job, Wired.
Or like a burrito would be a Liberty log.
Well, a log does get liberated after eating one of those.
Oh my god. Too much fun.
That would be the worst name ever for a sandwich. Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you know this, so this is really interesting. Back in World War I, we were doing propaganda against the Germans because we were fighting the Germans, right? So we changed some of the names of some of the food items.
Yeah.
One stuck, the others didn't. We tried to switch hamburgers to Salisbury steaks.
What?
Nobody bought it because it's from Hamburg. Hamburg is in Germany. Hamburgers. So we're like, okay, they're not hamburgers anymore.
They're not. I get why they did it, but like, isn't Salisbury steak something completely different? Isn't it like?
It is now.
Okay.
Well, back then they were like, no, that's what we're calling hamburgers now.
Why are Americans so funny, man?
Okay, well that's propaganda, right? So
Yeah.
and sauerkraut they tried to change to Liberty cabbage.
No, they didn't.
Swear to God.
Really?
That's why the joke about Liberty sandwiches. Okay.
Wow.
And that one didn't stick. They're like, yeah, give me some sauerkraut.
None of this shit should stick. This is craziness.
But one did stick. Bratwurst was changed to hot dogs, and we still call them hot dogs.
Oh,
interesting.
There's nothing hot about hot dogs. They're gross.
Yeah, but on the other hand, hot dog not a great name, but maybe a little better than bratwurst, which is also not that appetizing a name.
Yeah.
Me, I'm an American though. I'm pro hot. Okay. You know what? We'll save the rest for the next break. Let's get going on this, folks.
Okay. All right. A group of Muslims have come out, or revived, I should say, a campaign to make a statement condemning the Islamic extremism abroad, while also mentioning that they are peace-loving Muslims that have nothing to do with this extremism. Now, the hashtag trended back in September, but now it's been revived, and the hashtag in question here is not in my name. There's a short video kind of explaining what this is about. Let's take a quick look, and I'll give you more details.
ISIS do not represent Islam or any Muslim.
Because it's totally un-Islamic. Because they're killing innocent people.
Because you're unjust. We must all unite together and try to stop this group from damaging Islam and damaging Muslims. Not in my name. Because your leader is a liar.
Because your actions do not represent the actions of the rightly guided companions.
Because your caliphate doesn't represent the Ummah.
Because what you're doing is inhumane.
Because you abuse heart and minds.
Because you have no compassion.
Because my religion promotes tolerance for women, and you have no respect for women. Not in my name.
Not in my name. Not in my name.
Not in my name. Not in my name.
Not in my name.
So that was a campaign that was started by the Active Change Foundation, and again, this was something that started in September, and now it has been revived because of the attacks in Paris. And I think it's important to do campaigns like this because, unfortunately, the way the media covers Muslims in general tends to demonize all of them, and that's led to hate crimes and bigotry toward completely moderate, peace-loving Muslims that haven't done anything wrong. So hopefully campaigns like this humanize them. But also it kind of goes toward those who claim that all Muslims should condemn what the extremists are doing. They do condemn what the extremists are doing. They don't applaud it. They don't sanction it. They don't warrant it.
So every Muslim group in the West condemns these attacks. They do it immediately after the attacks. They put out the statements. Fox News, I don't know if they get the statements or don't bother getting them, goes, why won't they condemn them? But they just did. They put out a whole statement. And then all the Muslim countries condemn them. Even it's not even fair to say even Iran. Iran hates ISIS, right? Iran condemned these attacks. So now when you mention that, some people get mad. They're like, "Oh, don't talk. What are you trying to help Muslims by pointing out they're against terrorism?" But you asked if Muslims condemn terrorism. We're answering the question for you. They are condemning it. So make up your mind.
So
right?
I think that there's really something else at play, and I could be wrong about this, but this is just my speculation. I don't think that they necessarily want these individuals to condemn the terrorists. Of course they're going to condemn the terrorists. Of course the vast majority of Muslims are peace-loving people, right? I think what they want is for them to condemn their own religion, okay? They want them to speak out against their own religion. And look, here's the reality about religious doctrine, okay? You take Christianity, you take Muslim religion, and you just look specifically at their doctrine and their literal interpretation of their doctrine. They're both violent, okay? It's all about the way individuals interpret that doctrine and how they actually utilize it. Now, if you want to have a conversation about, which religion has carried out the most acts of violence recently, it's no question Muslims. There's no question about that. Muslim fundamentalists, right? But here's what you're not doing any favors to. When you disenfranchise peace-loving Muslims who should be joining our fight against extremism, well, you make the fight against extremism a lot more difficult, right?
Well, they're not just theoretically joining the fight. Kurds are Muslims. They're fighting against ISIS every day in Iraq and Syria, right? Other Muslims in Syria are fighting against ISIS. Iraq is Muslim. The Iraqi government is fighting against ISIS. So to say that they're not doing enough when you're sitting on your ass and they're picking up a gun and fighting bravely against ISIS troops, a little hypocritical, right? So now on this issue, I'm actually a tiny bit torn because I don't feel that every Muslim has to apologize for what ISIS did. There's this horrible report on TV the other day. They kept asking this guy from a Muslim center in community center in France, why don't you condemn it? He said, but I did condemn it. They're like, okay, but your mosque, why didn't you catch these guys? He's like, how the hell was I supposed to catch them? They weren't in our mosque. I've never met these guys. Like, all Muslims don't know each other. There's 1.6 billion of them, right? Like, if I had known the guys, I would have turned them in, but I didn't know them. Like, okay, yeah, but apologize for it. He's like, what do you want me to apologize for something I didn't do? Like, this is weird. This is getting really, really weird, right? So I'm a tiny bit bothered that it seems like they're in mass apologizing for things they didn't do, right? I mean, it would be weird for any other. I mean, okay, fine. People hate it when you say Dylan Roof. That makes their heads explode. I don't know why. Okay, so let's not use him as an example. Use any other example. When the weirdo Christian fundamentalist killed Dr. Tiller, did every Christian or every pro-life person in the country have to come out and say, no, I didn't do it. I'm sorry I didn't catch him in my church. Like the guy who attacked the Jewish community center in Kansas. Did every Christian in the country have to apologize for that guy? Why would you have to apologize for that guy?
Right. Unfortunately, the way everything is being covered demonizes all Muslims, right? And it might be intentional, like it is in the case of Fox News, right? Where they're demonizing refugees that are literally trying to escape this type of terrorism in their own countries. But it might happen either subconsciously or unintentionally by other outlets. And so, I don't blame them for coming forward and doing a campaign like this. I agree with you that it's a little unfair to ask all Muslims to get out and condemn what's happening. But at the same time, I think that it does at least fight back somewhat against this idea that Muslims who follow this type of doctrine are all evil and they're all against us. That's not the case.
No, don't get me wrong. I love them for doing whatever they can to fight against that, right? And look, they're brave. They're coming out and saying ISIS does not speak on my behalf. They're making fun of the leaders of ISIS in some of the video, right? Wonderful, wonderful. And so they point out a verse from the Quran, and I want everybody to understand this too. So parts of the Bible are soaked in blood. Other parts are wonderful. They say help the poor and the needy. The Quran is the same. I know that, for Westerners who haven't read the Quran, they're like, no, it's only evil in the Quran. No, there are horrible parts of the Quran that are violent. And Muslims will say, no, that's not true. Yeah, I can show you. I read the Quran. Okay? That's partly why I left. Right? Yes, that exists. If they're in our way, let's kind of kill them. No, that's only if they attack us. And there's a ton of excuses made by religious people of all stripes. Okay? On the other hand, are there good parts of the Quran too? Of course. So, for example, here's a verse. Whoever kills an innocent person, it is as though he has killed all of mankind. So if you wanted to focus on the good parts of the Quran, you could focus on that part and say, Quran is 100% against killing innocents and committing acts of terrorism. It's like killing all of mankind if you kill just one innocent. But the reality is, the books are contradictory, okay? Both the Quran and the Bible have good parts and terrible parts. So what these people are doing, out of the goodness of their heart, they're trying to do the right thing. They're saying, let's focus on the good parts. So everybody handles it differently. I looked at it and go, the books are contradictory. I'm leaving. They don't make sense, right? They look at it and go, let's focus on the good parts. Great. Let's all do that. But when you just say, okay, the Bible's wildly contradictory and it has violent parts that maybe were exercised in the past, but no, Christians never do that. Never do that. No, you can't blame them in mass. No way. But the Quran is either all bad, which is not factually true, or, yeah, it's contradictory like the Bible, but the Muslims are irredeemable because they actually believe the Quran, whereas the Christians don't believe the Bible.
Also,
what a funny argument, by the way. You go tell the Christians that they're okay because they don't actually believe in the Bible. my guess is they're going to disagree with you.
Also, I just don't believe that every religious person sits down and reads page for page what religious doctrine tells them that they need to do. Like
almost none of them do.
So that's my biggest issue, because I see these kids in this video and they're my friends. You see, I look at them and I think of my friends. I think of people around me. I think of these innocent people who just want to live their lives and they don't want to get caught up in all this terrible, disgusting violence. And unfortunately, they were born into a family that believes one religion or another, and by default, they follow that religion. But I say that loosely because I was born into Christianity. Do you think I read the entire Bible when I was growing up and I considered myself a Christian? Hell no, I didn't do it. Went to Sunday school every Sunday. You think I learned everything that was in the Bible in Sunday school, even though I went from age 5 to 19? Hell no, they didn't teach us everything that we needed to know, or everything that the Bible contained. A lot of people follow the religion without really understanding exactly what their religious doctrine says. So please keep that in mind whenever you look at a specific Muslim person and you think, oh, they might be bad because of what's happening abroad with this ridiculous Islamic terrorism.
Okay, so final thing on this. Look, there's a reason why the people who are saying, oh, it's the Muslim ideology and it can't be fixed, and the problem with Muslims is that they all believe it, right? There's a reason why they're saying it. The reality is, no, Muslims like Christians, like Anna just said, the overwhelming majority of them do not read their holy texts. They don't know the good parts or the bad parts. They just know what they've been taught, right? And so, look, if you want to fight against the cultural propaganda that teaches them the bad parts of the Quran, I'm 1,000% with you, right? When in Turkey, there's these schools that have the kids, instead of learning real stuff, they teach them the Quran in Arabic. In Turkey, they don't even speak Arabic. The kids have no idea what it's saying. They memorize the whole Quran in Arabic. What a horrible waste. Free those kids. Have them learn something real, right? But the reason that the people blame Islam and its ideology in mass is because they don't want to get to a smart solution. They want to get you to have ill feeling towards Muslims so you can take action with those feelings, right? If you find out that it's kids like this, and they're just like the Christian kids, some read some parts of the Quran and others don't, right? Well, that's not convenient. It's not easy to hate them.
Yeah.
Right? After seeing those girls and guys in that video, it's not as easy to hate them.
I mean, it's not easy for people like us to hate them. It's easy for a lot of people that I see on the internet to hate them and think that they're just making excuses. They're not just making excuses. They believe what they believe. They have a different interpretation of their religion. And you see it across all sorts of religion, including Christianity. Again, I grew up Christian. I did not grow up believing that gay people were terrible and they're going to go to hell and burn in eternal damnation. All I learned was the good parts of the Bible, about how I need to forgive others, how I need to help the poor, how I need to just be a forgiving person, right? So those are the things I learned. But do you think that I sat down and learned about things in Deuteronomy? Hell no, we didn't learn about those things. So if somebody takes the Bible and reads it page by page, they would think, oh my God, someone who believes in this stuff must be evil or violent or whatever. No, that's not the case. I just want to have a sane conversation about these issues. And unfortunately, when these attacks happen, people go to extreme ends of the spectrum. And we need to consider the fact that we need coalitions, we need diplomacy, we need to work with people in order to solve this problem in the Middle East. And if you just demonize people who are peace-loving, well, then you're making the problem worse.
Yeah, and look, there are bad parts of the cultures of some of the countries that Islam is in. Some of them, like, for example, female genital mutilation, some of the Christians in those areas practice, some of the Muslims in those areas practice. If you say more Muslims practice it, I'm with you. How can we fight that? Let's fight it together, okay? So that's a specific problem that we can fight together. This terrorism is a significant problem that we can fight together, and a specific problem. Let's fight it together, okay? When you say, I'm going to go after all, no, not all Muslims, but Muslims in general, because they believe in the ideology of Islam. They like to talk in circles, right? They like to make themselves feel better about, no, I'm not after Muslims. I'm against the ideology of Islam. And no.
Let me ask you something. What is the solution to that? Because I agree, right? I hate the religious doctrine. Hate it. But it's there and people believe in it. So what's the solution? Do you get rid of it? And how do you get rid of it? Okay. Do you start picking and choosing which religions are acceptable? Because then it's a slippery slope, right? I don't believe in Christian ideology, don't believe in Muslim ideology, I don't believe in any religious ideology whatsoever. But if someone wants to practice their religion in a peaceful way, I'm not going to get involved in a country that's supposed to be in favor of religious freedom and tell them, no, we're getting rid of that because this is inherently evil. It's just, it just doesn't make sense. I want a real solution. Believe me, I want a real solution. Demonizing people based on what their religious doctrine says is not the right solution. It doesn't solve anything.
So here's my attempt at a solution. Okay, it is to, and this is funny because when I won my Freedom from Religion Award for speaking out against religion, okay, and yes, I know that comes as a shock to some atheists, but I got that award because I often say, hey, you know what? We should be proactive in fighting against the bad parts of religion, no matter what the religion. Okay, so I do believe in fighting back in the cultural wars. Okay, I think the cultural wars are real, and I think we need to engage in them. Okay, now this is an enormously important distinction. That doesn't mean I'm against all Christian culture or against all Muslim culture. I would argue that is a really sad and limited way to look at it. I'm against the parts of the culture that are problematic. So if a Christian says, let's help the poor and the needy, I'm not against that part of the culture. I love that culture, right? And by the way, a lot of people don't live in the West, don't live in Muslim areas. So they see the bombings. I get it. You see the bombings, you go, oh, I'm Muslim, that's what Muslim is, right? But you don't live in a Muslim area where they give 10% of their money to help the poor. And then in the religious holidays, the first thing they're supposed to do is to, for example, sacrifice a lamb or whatever it is to feed the poor. And the whole emphasis of the holiday is on the poor, to help the poor. You never see that because it's not in the news. I know why it's not in the news, because it's regular, it's normal, right?
It's not newsworthy.
It's not newsworthy. Right. But it gives you a skewed sense of what Muslims do. Now, on the other hand, I'm super aggressive in the opposite direction on some of the parts of the Muslim culture that I disagree with, that I think is terrible. So, and I know some of it is geographic rather than related to Islam, and some of it is totally related to Islam. So, for example, in the geographic category, in some of the Central Asian republics, they do kidnappings of brides.
Yes.
Right, bride kidnappings. Then they rape the girl, and then the girl's parents come over because of their culture and convince the girl to get married to a rapist. Okay? So that's a horrible old culture and practice. So I know conservatives, whether they're conservative Muslims or conservatives here in America, say, no, we protect tradition. We're in favor of tradition. No. It depends on the tradition. For example, here in America, we had a tradition called slavery. It was horrible. We were against that culture. We fought against that culture, and we won, and we should have done it. Yeah. So we should fight against female genital mutilation, obviously terrorism, right? The kidnappings, the honor killings, etc. So let's all fight against that together. Now, how do you do that? Well, you unabashedly engage in those cultural wars. So that was my whole speech. And how do you do that? It's not by attacking people. It's not by bombing them. We shouldn't go bomb Tajikistan because we're against, kidnapping and raping girls. It would be counterproductive to bomb them, right? So, but to say, hey, this is what we're for. This is why this is wrong. This is why we're right. You do that on the internet. You do it through shows like ours. You do it through education, and you show them, hey, you know what? If you mutilate a poor girl, it doesn't. First of all, the Quran doesn't tell you to do that. The Bible doesn't tell you to do that. That part you made up. Okay. And what is it? It was done for this reason in the past, and this is the real purpose behind it. And you fight them with truth. And if you fight them with truth, guess what? That is a long-term battle. You're not going to win overnight, and it's not going to be easy. But you keep pounding away at them with the truth and hope to change the culture in that way. But if you go and say to them, your identity is wrong, your identity, in this case Islam, is irredeemable, and that's why we must keep bombing you, profiling you, occupying you, doing all the things that we're doing because we're afraid of the Muslims, and we think the Muslims are unfixable, that is definitely not going to help.
I mean, that's what we've been doing. And another thing to keep in mind, just going to your point about bombing, I mean, here's why ISIS has been so successful in recruiting young people. And look, this is obviously a criticism of U.S. foreign policy, but I think that it's a warranted one, right? When the United States uses faulty intel to drop bombs or to do drone strikes on innocent civilians, or they accidentally kill innocent civilians in the process of trying to get a terrorist, and then on top of that, they refer to those civilians as collateral damage. How easy does it make ISIS's job in recruiting Muslims.
Yeah, and then
It's
you have
so easy.
And then you have idiots like Huckabee who say we should rip up our peace treaty with Iran because of the ISIS attacks in Paris. But ISIS hates Iran. ISIS hates Iran more than they hate us. It's a Shia-Sunni rift, and they hate the Shias that are led by Iran. So why would we be so monumentally stupid as to attack Muslims that ISIS is fighting against? And that's what you do when you say Muslims are irredeemable. Their ideology is so flawed, and they all believe their ideology, so they're not curable, so we have to fight against all of Islam. That is monumentally stupid and counterproductive. Let's be smart in how we fight back so we can end the terrorism.
All right. So now we move on to something else. Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break and go on to lighter fare. Okay, and the lighter fare when we come back is a literal ass kicking. Okay, and that's lighter news. Okay, we'll talk about that when we go. Alright, back on the Young Turks. We got to get to a lot of stories. Let me just read only one tweet because of that. Max Richards writes in, it's most accurate to say that Islam is a religion so it is subject to the same flaws and extremes as all other religions. That's exactly right. No question about that. And look, one last thing on this. When you see attacks like this and it's conducted by Muslim radicals, I get why it's easy to go, well, I don't know, man, all the terrorism seems to come from Muslims. It's actually statistically not true, but a lot of the big acts of terrorism, coordinated attacks of terrorism, are from Muslims, right? So, in fact, the majority of terrorist attacks throughout the world, according to our own sources, the U.S. sources, government sources, and in the U.S. are right-wing and other separatists a lot in Europe. But the bigger ones, the attention-grabbing ones, are from Muslim radicals, right? So you say, okay, well, you see, that's why it's a religion of violence, right? But we also do tremendous violence. It just happens to be state violence. It happens to be bombings, drone strikes, invasions. And we go, well, that doesn't count because it's not an ideology like Islam. We had to do it. What do you mean we had to do it, right? We have 1,000 options. We didn't have to do anything. And it is some ideology that leads us to do all those bombings. Hundreds of thousands of civilians died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Hundreds of thousands of civilians died. So you can say, hey, that's not a religion. Okay, that's fine. But you can't say it doesn't exist. You can't say that, hey, they're the only ones doing the violence. No, we do tremendous violence. It just happens to be state violence. You can't discount that because that is obviously part of the equation of what's happening. If you want to discount it, I guess you have an ideology. And there's a reason why you want to discount it, right? So just keep it real on that. Okay, for God's sake, let's move on. Member shout-outs today. Ari Niazev for member number 1450, and Stephen Da Silva, member number 867. Thank you guys for being members. We really, really appreciate it. And speaking of which, of our interaction with the audience, I'm going to tell you about another program we're doing. So I've told you about TYT Next in the past, and we started in sports. We're moving into a second channel now. This is when you guys in the audience get to be part of us at the Young Turks. We want to find our next host from you guys. We believe that we're much better off finding hosts from you than we are going to TV and getting a local reporter from Milwaukee to be like, and earlier today we had twice as many firefighters because we had twice as many fires. Yeah, I don't want that guy. I want you. We'll get to TYT Next. Let me show you a quick video on it, and then I'll give you where you can apply.
What's up, What the Flick fans? Francis here. I've got some amazing news for you. So, we are giving our TYT audience, specifically you guys at What the Flick now, the chance to be part of What the Flick. So this is a new system we're putting in place called TYT Next. We trialed it out on TYT Sports, and we gave fans of the channel the possibility to be on the channel by sending in a video that they are passionate about, talking about a sport that they love, and if the videos that were great, they got onto our channel, so it gives you the opportunity to be part of this. So now we're transitioning over to What the Flick. Now you guys consistently, I read the comments, we all read the comments, are talking about how you can do a better review than this. You want to talk about this, you want to review new shows like Mr. Robot, I know this. So this is giving you guys the chance to do this, so you can send in your video reviewing the TV show or the movie that you want to talk about. Send it in to tytnext@gmail.com. You can find out more about TYT Next over at our YouTube page, youtube.com/TYTNext. This is how some of our hosts found their way to where they are now. Joe Nidarola, for instance, myself. So there's plenty of opportunities there to potentially be part of the TYT network. So go over there, find out some more information in the description below. It shows where you go.
So if you guys think you can review movies better than Ben Mankiewicz, obviously you're right. So I'm just playing. So send in your reviews. Remember, it's tytnext@gmail.com. Send them to tytnext@gmail.com. Okay, for God's sake, let's do some stuff.
All right. The big fight of the weekend involved UFC fighter Holly Holm and, of course, Ronda Rousey, who lost her 12-fight winning streak. Now, Rousey, who was briefly unconscious after receiving a kick to the head from Holm approximately 59 seconds into the second round, was actually transported to a hospital following the fight. According to UFC President Dana White, Rousey's lip was split in half and had to be sewn back together. Now, since then, Rousey has been on social media to let her fans know that she's okay. She, of course, thanked them for her support. But, look, I'm not going to do analysis on a UFC fight because I'm not an expert on UFC. The only thing I know is that I watched the fight, and regardless of how horrendously violent it was, I couldn't get my eyes off the screen.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But I sometimes say, hey, it's too violent, it's not right for me. And if it's on a TV somewhere, keeping it real.
You just can't stop watching.
Like, you keep looking to see who's going to kick the other guy's ass. But look, that's part of why it's successful and part of the reason why it's not such a great idea, right? Do we want to give into those urges? We're like, yeah, kill him, kill her, yeah, get her, kick her in the head. Ooh, she's unconscious. It's human, we all do it, right? But I don't know that we should be doing it. But that's us being lips, okay?
It's just really interesting how, like, we have like these weird reactions to things, right? So, when it comes to sex, Like, all these states, like, don't want comprehensive sex ed, don't teach kids anything about sex, but at the same time, everywhere you go, it's, like, smeared in your face. Like, here's some sex, take it. Nothing. Right? Same thing with violence. Like, sometimes you'll hear people who are like, oh, you know, these video games, they're too violent. We need to do something. Look at these mass shootings. Maybe all of this violent content being thrown at all these people is having a negative or adverse effect. But at the same time, like, we seem to give violent things like this a pass. Look, I'm not saying you should get rid of these fights. I have no interest in regulating it, maybe regulating it because of, like, concussions and things like that, but that's a whole nother story. They're adults who have consented to doing this. They love it. They want to do it, so do it, right?
And in this case, it's like nearly perfect because it's violence, but it's two women.
Yeah, and two attractive women.
Right, and they're like on top of each other and wrestling around. It's called the
Right. So I don't really know what kind of point I want to make about this other than it was so horrific to watch. And I feel bad about the fact that I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Look, the part that really shocked me, I don't watch a lot of UFC fights. The part that really shocked me was when Rousey was already on the ground and Holm was like punching her in the head like twice. She got 2 punches in before is it called a ref? I don't know. Stop the situation. But I even got into it because I noticed that Rousey was like chasing her around the octagon. And I was like, stop chasing her. Let her come after you. You're losing your energy. I was getting so into it. I don't even know why I was like cheering for her. I really had no interest in cheering for anyone, but she was getting hurt really badly.
Well, we're giving you the upsides and downsides here. We asked you guys on the TYT app too. Are we too obsessed with the physical violence? So far, hundreds of votes in already. 63% saying yes, we are too obsessed with the violence.
So we're self-aware. We're self-aware.
Yeah, that's right. And now, of course, on the internet, it was not as subtle. This was greatly celebrated.
Yes, it was. I have some examples for you. Now, first of all, before we get to the examples of people like talking about this, Ronda Rousey kind of predicted what was going to happen when she was talking to Jimmy Fallon. So when talking about her predictions for the fight, she said Holm would probably keep far away from me and keep me frustrated to a point where I'll make a mistake and she'll try to kick me in the head. But it's not going to go like that.
Oops. That's exactly how it happened, right? So she knew it, but she couldn't prevent it.
Right, but why were you chasing her around the octagon?
No, to be fair, what little I know about this, that's her style. She's like Mike Tyson from boxing back in the day. She goes after the other person and overwhelms them right in the beginning. That's usually how she fights. Just in this case, Holm was so long that she was able to keep her away. I mean, I wish I'd bet on it because I thought, like, you've won a limited number of fights. It's not like you're invincible. It was 14-1 in favor of Rousey. I would have loved to bet the underdog, right? Because if Holm wins, she's a celebrity forever. She's got to be so motivated. And Rousey was talking so much smack.
She was. Can I give you an example of that?
Yes.
So I felt bad for her, and honestly, I feel bad because now all of these like terrible memes are out there of her getting her face bashed in, and you know they're making fun of her. Lady Gaga was one of the people that made fun of her. We'll get to her tweet in a second. But here's one example of the shit talking that Ronda Rousey is guilty of prior to the fight. She said, "Fake ass, cheap shotting." Fake ass, cheap shotting, fake respect, fake humility, bitch. Preacher's daughter, my ass. I see through your fake sweet act now. You're getting your ass kicked tomorrow, and I'm really going to enjoy the beating I give you. Hashtag and still. So I don't know if that's like something that they're encouraged to do because it like gets people hyped up for the fight. Like, oh, look at that shit talking. It's like, right? Or if it's like genuine and she really means to shit talk. But I know that she didn't like touch gloves or something prior to the fight. People are like pissed about that.
Okay, so look, there's a lot of hype before the fights. It happens in boxing, it happens in UFC, obviously, right? Mixed martial arts. Muhammad Ali was a king of this, right? I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Okay, and I mean that's the mildest thing he ever said. I'm Freddie, you're ugly. Okay, and on it would go. And then what he would do to the guys, etc., and get inside their heads, right? So we're used to this. So don't blame Rousey for it. I mean, guys have been doing this and fighting forever. It's the oldest thing there is in fighting. I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna kick your ass. And besides which, when you're about to get in a fight, right, you want to pump yourself up. I'm gonna kick her ass. I'm gonna kick her ass. She keeps saying to herself. So that I don't blame her for that at all. When the fight began, you're supposed to touch gloves, and she didn't, which was unsportsmanlike. I get it, she's in the zone,
Isn't it?
I would have touched gloves. But
Isn't it kind of funny how it's like it's a sportsmanlike behavior to not touch gloves, but prior to the game or to the fight, prior to the fight, it's all fair game. Say whatever you want. You can call her a fake ass, cheap, shotting, fake respect, fake humility bitch.
That's cool.
That's okay. But if you don't touch your glove, you're a bad person.
Right, and afterwards you can kick her in the head and knock her unconscious, and that's cool. But you better touch gloves.
Okay, so Lady Gaga was pissed about Ronda Rousey not touching gloves, so she did the following. The singer-turned-actress posted a photo of home knocking out Rousey on Instagram on Saturday, captioning it, "That's what you get for not touching gloves."
I love that this is like the biggest issue in America now, touching gloves. Are you going to touch gloves or are you not going to touch the gloves? Okay, now let's go to the memes, which were both hilarious and horrifying.
Oh, they're bad. I don't know. Just go to the next graphic. Oh, I don't like this kind of stuff, although I couldn't stop watching the fight.
Come on, it's funny, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, she's like, oh, rubbing her face, oh, yeah, sick on, right? Or Simba, that's Simba, right? Yeah, he's in there.
My God, yes, it is Simba.
Bedtime stories with Holly Ho. Oh, so wrong. Oh, yeah. But then look, but this is what Anna's original point was. We're kind of glorifying the violence, right?
Yeah,
we're all celebrating it with these memes. 99, right? So now again, if you're a Rousey though, that moment when you realize you talk too much shit. Oh yeah. So now if you're Ronda Rousey, you can't complain because you stepped in the ring. This is what you do. This is what you bragged about. You did talk the shit. And you said she wasn't going to kick you in the head, and she kicked you in the head.
Yeah.
And that's life. Okay. So she signed up for that. But for the rest of us, I guess what we're saying is, let's be okay with having mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you to be like, right? At the same time, it's okay to be like, oh, wow, that was hard to not watch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those things are okay. Let's make peace with that and touch gloves.
I want to make it clear, because I think this always gets overlooked with sports in general. They think that there's the sportsmen, sports people, athletes, and then there's the unsportsmanlike ones who are assholes and I hate you and you don't deserve to make your money. I can't believe you're even in this sport. I mean, perfect example, Tom Brady, Richard Sherman. And they talk about how Tom Brady, golden child. He's a consummate athlete. He's a winner. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't disparage his opponent. Yeah, he does.
No,
yeah, he does. Talks a lot of garbage.
Yeah,
from the NBA.
People never watch football.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He has this golden. It's an image thing. So people thought, oh, Richard Sherman, he's just loudmouth because he'll go on TV and say the same stuff. Tom Brady will go on TV and won't say the same stuff. He'll say it on the field, and all people who play against him say, oh, he's one of the biggest ones. So it's known that way. But we love Tom Brady. I hate the fake outcry over people who don't touch gloves. Number one, who's about to fucking punch you, or who don't talk too much. That's the best part. I love playing against guys that talk trash. It's fun. Makes it better. And then if I beat you, fine, whatever. If you win, fine. That's what we're here to do.
I'm always amused at like the unspoken rules of sportsmanlike behavior in sports because I feel like it's the most strict when it comes to baseball. Because like people talk crap about Puig on the Dodgers because he's kind of a little bit of a showboater, right? And they're like, no showboat, but he did something kind of cool. Like it's okay to celebrate your victory a little bit, right?
Yeah, I would never listen to that shit if I was a baseball player. Every time I hit a home run, I'd be like, throw the fucking bat and be like, what the hell? As I walk around the bases super slow.
Are you kidding me? If I ever hit a home run, I think I might actually get down on my knees and cry.
I'm not sure that'd be the best way to celebrate it.
Oh my God, it's a miracle.
I'm sorry, and Ben and I have had a disagreement about this. It's based in jealousy. The reason why we throw these memes up or say what now to people who finally lose, it's okay with rooting against the asshole. That's fine, but you're kind of jealous that you're not in a position to do that. And the reason Ben and I have a disagreement is sports writers. They kind of control a lot of the athletes' destiny and their perception. So these are guys who, of course, at one point in their life wanted to be an athlete, couldn't make it, or never even started to make it, a lot of these. So then they know they have this connection to control these people that they're jealous of, that are mean to them sometimes, you know? So it's just the way it is. It's based on a lot of jealousy, and that's why there's people who are in the sport and like.
Yeah, a lot of people who got their ass beat by Ronda Rousey were like tweeting out these memes and stuff, and I'm like, come on.
No, you can't. You can send any meme you like unless she knocks your ass.
I know. Then you kind of look like. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay, we got it.
We gotta go. I had more things to say, but we'll save it for the post.
Skipping ahead to the poor retiree who was involved in a bad romance. Okay. Catherine Short from Florida fell in love with a man that she met on ChristianMingle.com. Unfortunately, she never met the man in person, and he also scammed her out of $185,000. In fact, she is short some money. You're terrible. This is a devastating story. She's 71 years old. Again, she met him on ChristianMingle.com, and he kept asking for pricey gadgets, and she kept buying them for him. And then she was warned by her son that she's going to be the victim of fraud or scam, or she's going to be scammed. And she just didn't buy it. And then finally, she sold her home in order to get her hands on the $185,000, the only money she had. And she gave it to the scammer. And now she's being, her story is being used as a campaign to raise awareness about fraud online, specifically in Florida. And I feel so bad for her. She says, I'm a trusting person. It takes a lot for me to see that someone could hurt somebody at my age. Well, welcome to the real world.
So, the guy said to her that he'd buy her a gold ring with her name spelled out in diamonds, that he was in love with her.
I'm literally going to cry right now.
Okay, her family was like, no, he's scamming you. And she's like, oh, so you don't want me to be happy. I found someone who loves me, and you're trying to prevent that. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. And he said, no, in the beginning, he was like, I need you to send this text out, gadgets, but I'm going to send it to underprivileged kids. Don't let your family stop me from helping the underprivileged kids. And then he had to pay a hospital bill in Panama. See, they don't just go to that right away. They lure you in, and they talk about how much they love you, and you build this relationship of trust. And that, like, these scammers, the first thing they do is like, but you trust me, don't you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, by the way, I'm sorry for making this weird. Political, but Ted Cruz does similar things. You trust me, right? And so I'm not going to do anything bad. Let's come a little further, and then finally, after he's got her completely on the hook, he says, okay, sell your house, give me the $185,000, and she does it. Now she's out in the street, and she's trying to find a job.
My heart hurts for her.
Yeah.
Look, I remember that crowdfunding page that was set up for Memories Pizza because they wanted to discriminate against gay people. For the love of God, let's help Catherine Short in some way. Like, I know some of you might think, like, oh, she's stupid, why did she fall for it? She was even warned by her own son. You don't know what people will do when they're lonely and they're seeking companionship, when they have pretty much nothing, right? Like, it sounds like she has a family, but that need for companionship is so significant. And when you're at that age, it becomes really difficult to find that. That's like my biggest fear in life. I think that's the reason why this story, like, really touches me in the worst ways, I guess. Just ending up elderly and alone and looking for companionship and not being able to find it, and to get scammed like this. Like, what a sick person.
Yeah, and of course they think, oh, I'm going to look for suckers. Where should I go? ChristianMingle.com, right?
I mean, anyone who's on any dating site could be a victim of something like that.
And it's not just because, hey, they're Christian, they're more gullible. No, it's people looking for love, right? And especially when they're at their most vulnerable, as Anna points out, and as they're getting on in their years, and they're looking for some sort of companionship to keep them, warm and the loving embrace that they're looking for. Somebody says, yes, that's the time to take advantage. Really, I mean, among the worst people on earth, right? So, unfortunately, the money's gone. The authorities try to find it in the wind. It's already gone, okay? So, be careful. And what's so terrible, and the last thing that's terrible about this, other than the damage it does to her and people like her, is that it makes us all question one another. And so, when you're on Christian Mingle or any other website, and now you all have to wonder, wait, is it real or are they playing me?
Right.
And that doubt that they introduce into all of us, and that skepticism and lack of trust, it breaks the bonds of humanity. And so it does more damage than just the people that it affects.
Yeah, this show and what it's exposed me to has hardened my heart in a lot of ways.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of everyone now. Okay, anyway, moving on to lighter stuff. Well, not really.
Okay.
Business Insider spoke to a handful of tech employees over the age of 50 to see whether or not they've been victims of age discrimination in Silicon Valley. Now, unsurprisingly, many of them have dealt with some age discrimination, and their stories are fascinating to say the least. Now, a group of Google employees are referred to as Greyglers, and that's for Google employees over the age of 40.
Oh, wow, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it's so interesting because back in 2007, Mark Zuckerberg made a point about how younger people are better in the tech industry because they're smarter, which is kind of a strong statement to make. I don't think they're necessarily stronger, but they might be more tech savvy. Also, at the same time, back in 2007, it was kind of common knowledge that people in their 20s were applauded and celebrated, whereas people in their 30s were tolerated. Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
It's just, this is so incredible because look, ageism impacts everyone across all fields of work. But when it comes to the tech industry, it's kind of a different beast because the tech industry requires technology to change and advance on a regular basis, right? The next new hot thing is out there, and it's up to you as someone who works in that field to keep yourself up to date. It's not like a job where you learn one thing and you become an expert in that one thing and then that's it. No, the tech industry is constantly changing. So, according to one person, these are all anonymous individuals because they don't want to get fired from the jobs that they're currently at. There's definitely age discrimination. When it came time for him and other managers to choose employees or for pink slips, age is one of the decision points, right? So, when you're trying to lay people off, let's get rid of the older employees for a number of different reasons.
Well, one thing they haven't talked about yet is that the younger guys, they might be more tech savvy. Saying they're smart is ridiculous, right? And you're not going to show me any scientific studies that show that people keep getting smarter throughout the ages. Hey, if you say that people going to, for example, really good schools are smarter now because the competition is tougher, that's true, right? But one age bracket is not any smarter than another age bracket. And if you say that, it's a kind of an ironic point to make. It's kind of a dumb point. All right, anyway. But the other factor is price.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely.
So if it turns out you got a really tech savvy kid who you don't have to pay as much,
pay him $25,000-$30,000 a year.
That's right.
He'll take it.
Right. Or you've got someone who's got more seniority, who's really good, but you're paying him a lot more. Well, that is going to be a factor, right?
Yes. And again, keep in mind that with younger people, they're more likely to know what's happening in, recent tech news, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll get to that in a second. Let me give you more. Another person says, sooner or later, your corporation will get rid of you, not because you're old, but because they are concerned with what kind of face they put in front of their clients. They want to be thought of as youthful, to look progressive, ironically.
Yeah.
And they won't put a guy out there who is 60 years old. I know it's stupid, but you would be surprised how many people think like that. Now, let me give you some numbers. In 2012, across all industries, there were 3,488 age discrimination employment complaints filed with California's Department of Fair Housing and Employment. California is important to keep in mind because that's where Silicon Valley is, of course. Now, in 2014, it actually jumped to more than 4,500 complaints. Okay, so they're increasing and it's becoming more of an issue. But the advice that the successful older people in the tech industry are giving to their peers is that you have to continuously adapt. You have to continuously learn new technology, master new skills in order to remain relevant in an ever-changing field of work.
And I'll add to that. You got to build your brand. That might sound annoying to people, but it's a reality. If you build up a name in your industry, right, well, then you're going to be more valuable. And if someone's the same age but hasn't kept up with technology as Anna says, well, then you've made a mistake. Then there's a good reason not to hire you, right? But also, that is one thing you build with time. Your brand and your name value is an asset that you continue to accrue, right?
Yes.
And so that is your one advantage against the younger tech-savvy workers. So you have to be cognizant of that. So sometimes that's great because you're actually accomplishing things, and that's why you build up your brand. Because, hey, look at what Bob did. That's amazing, right? And sometimes it's BS marketing. It's super annoying. Yeah. And that's why people play politics within companies, right?
That's right.
That's real and annoying.
So I want to leave you with one graph that I think is super fascinating. It's graphic number 25, and it shows you all the different major tech companies and the median age of its employees.
Wow.
So at Facebook, the median age is 28. That's amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, Google's 30, right? LinkedIn, where you feel like, oh, LinkedIn's some serious business people. Well, for their employees, median age is 29, right?
Oh my god.
Like the oldest one is Hewlett Packard at 39. That's not that old either.
It's amazing. Yeah, 39's not that old. This is devastating. This is devastating.
Hey, look at the upside. If you're a young person trying to get into the business, apparently their doors are open.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Hey, look at the silver lining, right? I don't mean silver as in old.
Good thing you created your own company, Uger.
I know. But that, by the way, that's part of why I did it, right?
Yeah.
I don't like being at the mercy of other people.
I know.
Right? So, when you work in another company, you got to deal with bullshit like this. So, I mean, look, to be fair, I don't know what we're considered a tech company, but we have fired everyone over the age. Like, oh, Jimmy just turned 50.
Bye, Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy was nice though.
He's been lying about his age for a while, too.
No,
I'm kidding.
By the way, Jimmy might be the most liberal guy in the whole company, but loves boxing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually really like boxing, too.
Uh-huh.
It's like the only... No, I like some sports now because of Christian, but I love to watch boxing. I don't know if that speaks highly of me, but whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. Okay, don't judge. All right, are we done?
We're done.
Okay, well, we gave it a shot. We gave you a show. All right, all this stuff we didn't get to
tomorrow.
Tomorrow and the post game. Okay, post game should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So that is tytnetwork.com/subscribe. Bye bye.